They always suddenly start chewing bones in the middle of their talk because they're really like,
Hello. Oh, you love the camera, don't you? Okay. Welcome to Crumbling Walls with me, with Raquel, and our first guest, Eva. Thank you for being here today and for coming here to share your story with us and just have a conversation, very unplanned flow conversation we're going to have with birds. If you're seeing some videos, I have a bird on my head. Otherwise, I'm telling you there's a bird on my head. But yeah. So today we don't have a specific topic, and I think it's going to be very much a flow and a conversation. And yeah, I do have a few questions. The first thing I would like to do is for you to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us who you are and like what you do, like surely, and then maybe we can go into your story later.
Okay, so I'm Eva. I'm very passionate about a very particular way of being creative, and that is through the exploration of the oneness of all of life. And I found that this is particularly powerful through spoken word and movement. And nowadays I call what I do embodiment. Actually, I'm going to move it because it belongs to it, isn't it? Nowadays I call it embodiment as the one heart. And that is because the universal practice is to bring everything together as one. The bodies, the spoken word, the sound, the space, life, the world, literally everything. And I'm absolutely fascinated with this. Can't really call it a topic, can we? With this particular... what is it? with this very particular way to express myself, really. Yeah, maybe that's which has so many different ways, and I always find new ones.
Yeah, because you can see your creativity through like paintings and photography, and then you can see it through movement and spoken word, and you can even see it in yourself, in your house. Is this full expression in all these different ways? So, but that all comes to that oneness, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've done I've done one of your one-to-ones, and that was very interesting what came up, and it really a lot of things came up that helped me. It helped me through that month. Like it's difficult to explain without getting too much into it, but the idea of the unknown, what came at that point when we did our session. And at that point, I think that's what I needed, because I was at the point where I felt blocked with all the labels, and I just needed to go into that unknown and be okay with that and surrender to that. So that was very powerful, because it brought me what I needed that I didn't even know. But that was within me, inside of me, all along, kind of thing. So it's a way of not only expressing and creating, but also understanding yourself better through that creativity.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, the unknown is really a crucial consideration in embodiment as the one heart, and in everything I do. Nowadays I literally just get up in the morning and I go, what needs to happen today? And when I start a project, I often don't know at all how it's gonna unfold or where it's gonna go, and I'm also not I'm not like trying to know anymore, because I just trust that the unfolding will bring whatever needs to come into existence. And it's really amazing because I'm always surprised by what comes out of anything I start. You know, I start with this little idea somewhere, and it's like this, oh, I got an idea, you know, and it's quite sort of like a cute little thing. It seems to be like this cute little, you know, creative idea, and then it goes, whoa, and it turns into something like I could not have possibly expected, and especially when it happens to turn into a co-creative endeavor, then it always just takes on so many dimensions of what it can be, and I'm just totally ecstatic about the gift of that.
I agree with that, and that's kind of why we're doing this podcast in this way, of this flow and not really knowing exactly what's gonna come up.
Yeah.
So because I think that's what, I mean, it's like having a conversation, isn't it? Sometimes you have the best moments, you're like, oh, I wish I had recorded that conversation, that was amazing, you know. And then, so I wanted to ask you also, because the podcast is called Crumbling Walls, with that idea of those walls and those traumas, those defense mechanisms that we build with time, especially during childhood, to protect ourselves, but then that also stops us at some point further down the line. And for me, I did explain on the first episode, it was a bit rejection and how that affected my expression. So I would want to ask, what was it for you, or is it for you? What is, if you can think of that wall, of that defense mechanism, or that trauma, something that stopped you and that you have had to work on?
So it's very interesting. So there was like, in my physical system, there was a very deep sense of unworthiness, like very, very deep. It felt like eons old, you know. It felt like it wasn't just from one life, because actually my childhood was relatively benign in lots of ways, and it was very supported, and I felt very loved by my parents. And of course there's stuff, you know, that parents do that hurt you or that cause something without them wanting to necessarily do that. But the type of unworthiness I experienced was so deep that it went as far as going like, I don't have a right to live. You know, that's how it was. Like, I was so unworthy. I was the most unworthy of the unworthy, which is very special, you know. Which is very interesting, because we then tend to often turn that into something needing to feel special, because we feel very unworthy, right? So but when I wasn't aware of feeling unworthy, I was looking for being special, right? I wanted to find a reason why I may be having the right to be here. And then eventually, the more I practiced and the more I got drawn into this reality of no separation, where it really doesn't matter if you're worthy or unworthy anymore, because it just isn't about that. You know, it's just beyond that polarity between those two, you know. So I didn't struggle to feel worthy anymore. I was suddenly just in a completely different paradigm, and I felt more myself than I've ever felt myself. So that's one of them. And the other one was that I was very, very frightened to speak up. And I was very scared of being literally killed for what I do. So that was another deep, deep pattern that felt like it comes from eons of these type of things, where someone, and in human history you see it so much, isn't it, that there's people who do amazing, beautiful work in the world get killed for it. So I was very blocked around that, and there was always a part of me that wanted to hide more than wanted to go out there. Until it finally began to unravel, and just the urgency to get out there in the heart just grew so strong that it began to just like outshine that.
So the need of creating and that love, that oneness was bigger than any fear, any...
It became so much stronger. I can't hold it back anymore. I can't stop it.
Yeah.
And I'm suddenly, like, I've had so many methods to hold myself back, to not make it grow, and I employed them all, but now I can't do it anymore. Now when I get an opportunity to get out there, I take it, and I take it 500%, and I'm there, and I'm with it, and I do what it takes, no matter if I find it really annoying hard work and I'm not very good at it or whatever it is. I just do it, because I just can't stop myself. Just basically stopping myself would hurt so much that I just can't do it anymore. It would just be so... I mean, it would be worse than... Sometimes it would be worse than being killed for what I do. It sounds traumatic,
No, I understand what you mean, yeah. But I feel that that's what's happened a little bit to me too. Like, obviously I did work on, the things that were stopping me, which basically was my own mind. The fears and all of that. So obviously worked on that. But maybe also... as you did find your idea of the oneness, that thing you want to work towards, I think once you find that, you kind of cannot do it. You have to do it, otherwise, as you said, the consequence is worse than just the fear that you can have. It would make me just depressed. Not to do the things that I'm doing, because... And I mean, I think it was, though. It was making me depressed at some point, because at some point... a few years back, first I probably didn't know what I was doing. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to focus in terms of creativity, and I think that's what we have in common. We're quite creative people, but also the fears were too high, so it was that kind of like the fears are crushing the expression, and I was feeling that kind of like depression and just not feeling complete, maybe. And now of course I still have the fears. They're less because of working with movement and song and all the things, but the expression wants to be so much that it's just, but so I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about your story, or where you think these things could come from. You said you thought it was maybe also like, what, generational trauma, or what do you think could be the cause?
So I tend to be that type of embodiment, you want to call it, that tends to be very multidimensional. So I get a lot of visions, and I remember past lives and these type of things, but I don't remember them in a way that I would say I had this or that past life as if it was kind of mine. I don't see it like I have a soul that travels from body to body, and it's like this string of events, this linear string of events that comes through. I see it more like there is only one person living every experience, ultimately. And for certain lives, we take on, it's almost like we take on certain memories or a certain theme to learn about that particular theme. Something like that is currently my impression. About how things may be working, but I'm always open to learning more about this understanding, right? So I'm not saying I kind of know the truth, you know what I mean?
What is the truth?
But exactly.
Does anybody know the
but
truth?
It's just the impression I have, because the more I do the work I do, and the more I look at this certain trauma in my body, the more I see there's very, very specific themes.
I was gonna ask you if you had any specific memories then of like a past life
Yeah.
that explain these fears.
Yeah. So I have had a very particular memory around the Inquisition in Rome. So I was actually a man in this life, and I was teaching no separation in the 1600s.
Wow.
Which was not a very intelligent thing to do at the time. I didn't have many friends. I mean, I did try to find friends. I did find friends. I was in some ways popular, but also not. And I ended up, the Inquisition in the end thought I was a little bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, I don't think the world was ready for this.
No, and so I ended up being burned alive on the stake for what I believed. And it is very interesting because that particular memory, what happens for me is I don't go looking for memories, I don't meditate and go, who was I? It's not like this at all. It's kind of like, it just kind of comes. So there is something that happens in this life that reflects that circumstance of that life, and that brings up the pain, the trauma of it. But it's mild, so it's not really something that threatens me, but I feel as if it was like that, right? And then I end up basically, suddenly this person just comes in. He's literally he just goes, whoa, he's just there, and then I go like, wow, you wrote this essay in school for me. You did this, you did that, So I can suddenly tell which parts of me have his personality or his wisdom, and when it came through in my life, and how it saved me from certain bad grades in school and things like this. It's so fascinating.
Interesting.
And also very detailed little things suddenly I realized about myself. Like, for instance, when I was in Italy, people say, oh, you have to go to Rome. Rome is amazing, And I was like, I don't have to go to Rome. I don't even like Rome. I'm not going to Rome. And I had no idea, but this guy was burnt in Rome. So I had literally this dislike of Rome in my body, which makes no sense from this life, so to speak, right? At all. Yeah. Or I am allergic to Christian choirs. Absolutely allergic to any sort of Christian la-di chant. I'm absolutely, I go like mental, and I realized that this is because they were singing it while I was burning. So because they were seeing.
Give me goosebumps.
Exactly. So they were literally standing there, pretending it was sacred what they were doing, right? And like you have and this type of capacity in humanity to be so cut off from what's really going on, and to pretend that the most cruel thing you could possibly do to someone is something to do with love and God. That's been always in my body, oh, fucking hell, how can we do this? How can we be like this? How can this ever happen? That something like Christianity gets turned into something like that, right?
It happens all the time, unfortunately, doesn't it?
Yes.
That something positive, it turns into something negative used to control people.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting, the idea of past lives. I was thinking I was talking about this yesterday, actually, the idea of consciousness. I was wondering, are we all individual consciousness, individual bodies? We know we're not individual bodies because we're formed by atoms, and atoms are everywhere in the space, in the table, in you and me, and our atoms are the same, and energy is continuously exchanging, that's physics.
Mm-hmm.
And the same happens with consciousness. Then I'm like, well, if we are all atoms, we're all connected, we're all the same, we're all like this energy kind of continuously growing and expanding and evolving, this planet, and living and dying, then our consciousness should be also one, shouldn't it? And then if it's all kind of one, that I kind of imagine it as kind of as a blanket that folds into each of us, kind of as if it was, like, do you know what I mean? That makes sense?
Yeah.
And it just like folds into each of us. And then, but we're all kind of the same. And then the idea of past lives, are they even past lives, or is it that memory of some, it cannot even be you necessarily, of that general consciousness maybe. I don't know. Like, that's what a part of me thinks. The other part of me, which is the scientist, says, oh, this is all bullshit. And like, that part is always going to be there, my skeptical part. And I'm all right with that. But then again, even physicists, they don't know what it was there or how the world works. And I do about these kind of memories. I haven't explored this idea of past lives or conscious or whatever, memories of other lives or other times. But I've always had the sensation, I've always loved witches. Like, I was obsessed as a kid, like watching witches programs. I read the Witch magazine. Like, I absolutely love witches. This witchy memory or whatever. I also feel like I was made jump off a cliff.
Oh, wow.
Because...
As a witch? Or in another?
Yeah. I don't feel fear around burning or anything like that, but like, I have fear, not of heights, but of falling.
Okay.
Of like any kind of edge.
Yeah.
Could be a cliff, could be, the underground. Okay. Like anywhere where I could fall.
Oh, wow, okay.
I when I'm by the edge, I'm like, oh, I just have a weird fear. Okay. And there's no explanation for it. Nothing that's happened to me in this life, as you said, that, would justify that. Yeah. So I always feel like that's one of those things that I'm like, ooh, was that a past life? Or am I just inventing it? I don't know. But, that would be my experience with it.
I totally resonate with your process, because I've been exactly the same. I go like, but I might be just making this up. Where's this all coming from? This could be, there's no proof that this could possibly be true. I also have this part of me that goes just like, hang on a minute, you don't know anything about this, right? And where I've come to now is that I just basically see these memories as guideposts. They're almost like the visuals to what's in my body, right? So if I see that having a certain memory and attaching a certain visual image of an experience to that, if that helps me resolve a fear in the body, that afterwards I'm free of, then there's something real going on that I value. And in some ways, I don't really... I'm concerned then if it's real or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter if there has been this life. I mean, I don't think of it anyway as I have been this born in there, I was me. Because this is the danger. What can happen that everyone was suddenly Maria Magdalena or Cleopatra, and then we need to have this. Then we are actually in this paradigm of trying to feel special and worthy again, instead of doing work in the deeper parts of our existence, But it does seem very obvious that there is things in the body, fears and sensations and things going on, beliefs that just don't make sense to what I've experienced in my childhood at all,
Interesting.
So... And that is just my way of working with it. But I tend to just like be very clear that I only want to remember what is useful. You know, I'm not gonna go like, oh, and then I did this, and then I had this, and did this, and my favorite food was this. You know, I don't. It's not like what I do. You know, I just go, wow, this memory. Oh my God, this aspect of it is important. I can feel this here. This comes up in this type of situation in my life now. This stops me from doing this. This stops me from being able to respond. This makes me feel numb, powerless. All these kind of things. You know. So and then I find it like it's actually transformative in the right way, and some way I hold it lightly, the belief around it. You know, I hold the beliefs around it lightly in terms of what actually happened or not happened.
So it's like, I feel the same way. I'm like, I have this image, which could be, you know, a past life or whatever. So when I'm talking with somebody that believes in past lives, I'm like, oh yeah, I have this experience. When I talk with somebody that doesn't believe in it, I'm like, well, you know, I have this image. So it's not that I'm changing it. I myself don't know what to believe. But at the same time, as you said, I've kind of stopped caring.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I've had this sensation, and these sensations help me. And I think also, probably more as women, like, I think we perceive things in general, not only past lives or whatever, that, you know, are very intuitive and can help in a way that our mind cannot understand. And I was feeling this way also. I was in a sound bath. That sound bath, you were there too.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
And when I was doing the sound bath, you know, I kept getting like visuals, almost images, feelings sometimes. Okay. They're not necessarily so much visuals, like, oh my God, there's a bird, I could almost touch it. It's not that way. It's more of a feeling of like, oh, I feel there's a snake and I feel like it's getting closer, or I feel like I'm walking down a forest and I can kind of feel the darkness of the forest, you know. So it's not so much of a visual, but the sensation that you're there, and like, you know. And I kind of realized that our mind works with words and like, you know, thoughts, but our subconscious and even our body, I mean, our body obviously works through movement, but I think our subconscious very much works through images and feelings.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't understand thoughts. Like, everything is obviously, all those bits are connected. Because and then I was, you know, having these images, and I wasn't thinking about everything. In fact, thinking was taking me away from the experience. So I was just trying to kind of concentrate on the feelings that I was having and go with them wherever they were taking me. And it was very interesting to see, okay, wait, you know, there is a part of us that is deeper, that knows things, but in form of images and in form of, you know, feelings. And the same with this past life idea. It doesn't matter if it was true, if I was part of that at some point, or if it's just an image that is associated to something in my subconscious.
Yeah.
Because in the end, that image is like deep to me, and it helps me through things. So
another way of seeing it, I find very helpful as well, which is we tend to walk around in life, right, and we see just the immediate connections we have, you know, family just down like 3 generations or something, right, and then they get blurry, don't we, in terms of what's after that. But I've seen this diagram once which shows that basically you have like 2 parents, you know, and then you have 4 grandparents, and then you have like 8, and then it doubles every generation. Your relatives double, so you're very quickly to millions of people in your family. So and somehow all of the knowledge, the experiences of all these people have merged together in you, right?
Yeah.
So maybe all these people are similar people. So
maybe
I think
the ancestors, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how many generations you need to go back until you're literally a family member of every single person on the planet.
And then time is only a dimension that is not even, we see it as past, future, you know, a linear thing, but it's not, and physics know that it's not, it's a dimension.
Yeah.
So how am I touching with somebody whatever years ago that was, it's all of this, I think, is just very interesting. And I have my theories, which I don't know if they're right or not. I mean, I just like to debate about them, and open questions about it, because I don't know the truth. I can't know. The physicists don't know the truth. Nobody knows the truth about the universe and consciousness and humans and, So, yeah. Very open to that.
The unknown again, isn't it?
Again,
it's like the openness to the incomprehensibility of existence and our own nature that seems to be always a very healthy part of, or not even like a healthy foundation, of anything we're building personal growth on, or transformation of fears or trauma or whatever it is. For me, sort of holding it in the unknown always feels a very safe vehicle,
That's interesting though, because most people would find the unknown uncomfortable. And I think as human beings, we are kind of built to find it uncomfortable, because we don't want to not know if we're going to get food, or not know if we're going to find a house. So it's quite natural that we're afraid of not knowing. So how did you get to be at peace with it?
Well, at the moment, my life feels in that sense safe, that I have these things in place. Like I know I can buy food, and I know I have a house, right, to live in.
Of course.
So these basic physical needs are met, definitely. But of course, you never know. The house might break down, or there may be suddenly an earthquake or a thunderstorm or whatever, or a flood or a war, or anything could fall apart any moment, isn't it? I mean, anything about life could fall apart any moment. You could lose everything any moment of your life that you have known, and in fact you will lose everything you've known at some point, right? So my tendency tends to be that I almost I spend quite a lot of time with this moment of death, that will be one day. And I'm very comfortable with it. I'm very, and I'm planning to die very peacefully. I'm not going to do anything dramatic. This life is going to be a very wonderfully peaceful, conscious death. I'm determined.
You decided, yeah.
But I also do this as a meditation, right? I really enjoy that feeling of this sense of dying is really like the sense of letting anything and everything go you value here in this place, and it just opens you into this what's really important, and that's also what is here really important. So it's I don't even see it like letting go of life, and sometimes when I need to make an important decision, I go so if I'm lying on my deathbed right now and my life runs past me, would I go, damn it, I didn't choose this at that time, I didn't do this, I did this instead, right? Or will I be, and that's a very easy way for me to know what I really need to be doing, because it tells me instantly, what I would feel much, much better about, and I feel much, much better about having made that film instead of having cleaned the house.
Interesting. So you're not thinking necessarily about what you should do now, but in your decisions, it's like, okay, wait, what in the future will I look back and be like, that was the right choice?
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I tend to do that too, but then my house is a bit of a mess.
Mine do, but I just quickly go and fix it all again.
Yeah, and then Adam is like, you're not cleaning! And I was like, I was just making this song. But it makes me happier.
Exactly. It's like,
And which ways then, from those blocks that you had, how did you get to where you're at now? Was it through the oneness, through that knowledge of the oneness, and how did you get there?
Well, when I was younger, I was really obsessed with finding out who I am, but obsessed in a like very driven way. You know, I wanted to get enlightened. I wanted to do all these things, and I thought it must be just around the corner. Nothing. It was never coming. I was just obsessed, you know, with all this spiritual stuff, and I wanted, and I was intense about it. And then I met this spiritual teacher called Adida, and he teaches this reality of no separation, and that drew me to him and to his teaching. And after the first time I've met him, I came home and I wasn't thinking of anything at all. I wasn't even meditating or nothing. I didn't want to be spiritual. There was nothing of that kind going on. And I was just walking into my kitchen, and then suddenly there was no separation at all. It was just like, oh my goodness, you know, wow, this is what really is. Oh wow, you know, this is, and it just was literally just like, it just happened. I did nothing for that, you know. I did absolutely nothing, and the me doing nothing actually allowed it to happen, you know. That's what it felt like. And I felt instantly like the type of person I am. I had to instantly move and speak. Fortunately, I didn't record what I actually said in that moment. But I had to instantly speak it, what was, you know. And it was literally like this love, bliss, reality, aliveness pervading every bit of furniture, the wall, the air, the physical body there, and that was who we all were, you know. And it was everywhere and everything. And so I have like a life before that where I was like driven, you know, and then I have a life after that when I began to figure out what to do with this, you know.
Wow, okay. So it was literally like a moment of awakening, like kind of thing.
Yeah, so there was literally this. This was a life before and after.
Wow.
You know, it was like I couldn't go back to before, and sometimes I would have wished I could. You know, like I wish I could go back to before. You know, but I couldn't. It just everything changed then, and first I tried to like. I set up these improvisation spaces because I needed to say it. I needed to tell people. And I was literally just coming in the room with some props and improvising that to them. And then I realized that it's quite challenging for people to be confronted with that level of freedom in that communication, right? And also I started to then try to own it, and I became kind of grandiose with it, you know, and I tried to make it mine. And then it just started to feel really wrong. And luckily I wasn't a famous spiritual teacher at that point, so I couldn't cause too much damage at that stage. But I then realized I need to learn, this is here now, you know, I need to learn how to align this to the body, everything that's there, every pattern that's still somewhere there, every shadow aspect I don't know yet about myself, how to align this to that reality. That's what I need to learn next, right? And then I became a devotee of Adida, and I started to learn a lot more about that through that. And then eventually I moved more away from the community again because I started to just do things differently, you know, than that community was doing. And it felt very important for me to have the freedom to do that. But basically, that is what it became. So the practice of embodying no separation became the transformational tool to bring up every pattern that's in this body over time, you know, that needs to come to the surface and transmute.
Wow. And how, I think this may be the last question. How do you feel, like, where are you at now after all this journey with the oneness and, you know, your own patterns and your past lives and all of that? Where are you at now?
There was a time in my life where the practice was more where I would get caught up in separation a lot more, and I would learn how to go instantly from, like, no matter how disturbed I felt or emotionally upset, whatever, people could hire me and say, can you at 3:00 come there and dissolve in divine joy? I could do it. No matter what was happening beforehand. You know, if I had a huge argument or if something like this and I was really bothered, I could literally, boom, I knew it's possible to just instantly just go there, because it isn't about all of that, you know, and it just becomes that capacity. And now it feels like it's shifting the other way around. So now I feel like in this reality of no separation, like virtually constantly, but when there's a trigger, I can feel the separation coming in. But now I feel it within that. So before it was like from the separation to that, and now it's from that to the separation. And that is very interesting because it gives me a very new way of understanding that, these patterns that come up, because I can see it from the totality, so to speak, around it. And that is what I've been writing about in the course. Basically, I didn't realize that when I was writing it, but when I was writing it, I was teaching myself how to be that and work with the separation from inside the oneness of all of life, rather than being separate and keep moving into the oneness and back into the separation.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I said it was the last question, but I think I lied. They just keep coming.
It's a follow-up question.
Yeah, it is a follow-up question. I was going to ask if you could, because obviously even for me, like, it sounds quite abstract, the idea of the oneness. Like, I feel like I know what you mean, like, in feelings. But, like, I don't know if you have any ways that you at the beginning used, or, you know, that you're trying to teach to people to get into that oneness. And I mean, I've done a session with you, so
I do
like
recommend
I've done the movement, and
yeah.
So what is it that, you know, you would say this is a way of connecting and getting into that feeling of oneness?
Yeah, if someone is serious about it, I would really recommend the foundation course. And this is not because I'm wanting to sell it, but it's literally because I have, I've tried a lot of different things. I've done just workshops, and I've done just sessions that were very free flow and that bring people into that space, but that don't necessarily teach them how to do it themselves. And I've learned that in some ways the hard way. And that is why I ended up writing a course that is really teaches the fundamental principles of how to align the language to the reality of no separation, and then invites people into the embodied practice with that. And it can be really simple things. I mean, you can try this at home. Oh, I have an idea. Like in the study group, we worked last week with a phrase that came up in the course, which I really like. It's very simple, but it's a very powerful sentence, and it just goes, I'm going to move it, not halfway, yeah? The body already knows that it is the mystery of the universe. The body already knows that it is the mystery of the universe. Yeah. So phrases like that, they take out your idea of separation. They just don't acknowledge that at all, right? It's just like it's not there. And any phrase that does that is very liberating to speak and be whole bodily, because it's just, you can just relax from that separate thing, you know, from that apparent separate thing, because that separate thing is, as far as I can see, only an idea anyway that we have to hold all the time. We have to hold it, Because without us holding it, it's not there. It just disappears. It dissolves. So the invitation is to practice with sentences, with phrases that dissolve that.
Interesting. And how do you use, again, follow-up question. I really love how you use movement also as part of this process. Like, what do you think movement brings to it?
Well, ultimately, your body literally becomes one with the word, is one with the word. And it just literally, it's like a training program. It's like a training. It's like because we are so used to making this a separate thing, right?
Yeah.
So we're so used to saying, "Hi, Raquel, how are you?" You're not trying to be very separate now. I'm Eva. I sit here. We're so used to that, right?
Yeah.
And but the body already isn't that. So if the more we can feel into that body and inquire into it, what it actually is, the more obvious it becomes that it is not a separate self. So bringing the body into this is very, very powerful, because it will start to teach the verbal mind in its own way, with its own wisdom. It has this wisdom is all in it, of who we really are. It's all sitting here right now, if I know it or not. It's just that our brain got so used to having to say, "My name is Eva Malawa, I'm born here now, I do this and this," But if we align it to the reality of no separation and the oneness of all of life, it becomes comfortable with that. And it begins to learn that this is very safe to be there. It's safer than anything else in my understanding, and feeling. Yeah. But it needs time sometimes, because it gets freaked out. It gets a little bit like, what's this? No, it's scary.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in the process.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was all my questions. I think that was a really interesting conversation that touched a lot of things, from the oneness to past lives, consciousness. And I think I could only have this conversation with you. Like, you just, also when you're when you're here, you just make me feel really connected and present. I think it's because you do carry that oneness with you. And I think you do, definitely, I can feel that when I'm here with you, or with other people. Sometimes I am in my mind, or I worry and stuff. But with you, I always, when we start talking, it's like, yeah, we're here. We won. Yeah, I can feel it. So thank you so much for being in the podcast today. I mean, the first person in the podcast telling us your story. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope you follow us on the next one. I think we'll have some more people coming in. Yay!
Looking forward to that.
And yeah, follow, subscribe, all of those things. And I will just keep here having a little tea. And I hope you have a lovely week, and I'll send you loads of love.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
Thank you very much.
Yay!
Oh.
This was fun.